बिल्कुल, और एक महत्वपूर्ण प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस यहां पर होने वाली है। आप देख पा रहे हैं तस्वीरों में वित्त मंत्री की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस अब से कुछ ही देर में शुरू होगी। क्या कुछ बड़े ऐलान होंगे और उन ऐलानों का मतलब क्या होगा बाजार के लिए, इकोनॉमी के लिए, इसका सबसे सटीक विश्लेषण आप जी बिजनेस पर देख पाएंगे अब से कुछ ही देर में। हमारा पूरा पैनल भी तैयार है इसके ऊपर बातचीत करने के लिए, और ये पीसी अब शुरू हो रही है।
To all the dignitaries, the briefing will be like this pattern. First, Finance Minister will make her opening remarks, followed by brief presentation by CA, Chief Economic Advisor. Then the second presentation by the Revenue Secretary. After that, Finance Minister will take the questions.
Observing even as the Parliament was on, but it is necessary for us to put it all together before you on the various legislative measures that we've taken. And the second is to come back to you to say as to where we are on the various announcements which were made before the Parliament session commenced, the winter session, and in them what progress has been made, so that we have before us clearly, prior to the budget session, a template which, from the ministry's point of view, addresses questions or has laid down the landscape before us on both the legislative and also post-July budgets, various measures that have been taken. So we thought it's just the right time at the end of the winter session's closure for us to come before you and speak about the various measures taken. In the meanwhile, many tying of the loose ends and also some results which have started showing for the measures that we've taken are also before us. So we would like to take this opportunity to present all that before you. So thank you. I'll first commence it with a comprehensive, not a very big, but a comprehensive presentation by the Chief Economic Advisor, post which, of course, the Revenue Secretary would have something to say. Then the floor can be opened. Thank you.
So I'm going to, as the Honourable Finance Minister has rightly mentioned, I'm going to briefly touch upon the major interventions that have been undertaken to boost the economy. Let me start by recalling that the economic survey that was presented in July outlined a plan for the economy to become a $5 trillion economy, with investment being at the key driver, and anticipated consumption itself driving investment, and an emphasis on significant reforms. The steps that have been taken over the last few months actually can be seen in the light of this planned economic strategy that the government has set about. On the consumption side, and I'll go into some detail on each of these, the government has focused on clearing all the government dues, including those of the public sector units, on enabling retail credit by supporting the NBFCs and the housing finance companies, which are very important for credit that's given for consumption in the economy. There's been emphasis on supporting the MSMEs, via bill discounting, because MSMEs, for them, cash flows are really critical, and therefore enabling them, to sort of have cash flows by providing them avenues for bill discounting, and then tax refunds. So together, all these four are intended to bring more cash flow and thereby foster consumption in the economy. On the investment side, I'm going to describe a set of measures, a package of measures that have been taken to enable capital markets for financing. As you all would certainly appreciate, that financing is absolutely critical for investment. So these steps will go a long way in enabling investment through financing. The government itself has focused on capital expenditures. Again, we all recognize that government capital expenditure has the benefit of crowding in cushion private investment, and therefore government capex is extremely critical. Foreign direct investment, which has actually come in record numbers, that's something which is very critical for investment by the corporates. The corporate tax rate cuts, which were done to enhance the risk-return trade-off that the corporates face when they decide to make the investment. Supporting the completion of the real estate projects by providing them last-mile financing. Recapitalization of the public sector banks, which was announced in the budget and has been followed up. The credit expansion by the public sector banks by emphasizing some of the aspects that were needed to be emphasized, especially enabling honest decision making. The third leg is on various reforms. As has been mentioned already, there is a change in the emphasis on disinvestment to thinking about using disinvestment to enhance efficiency in the economy. The measures that I'll talk about, a lot of them, actually all of them, have used transparent and targeted due diligence to enable that so that investment really goes where it is intended. The ease of doing business, the improvement in the rankings that happened, in the World Bank's rankings, that's reflected in some of the steps that have been taken. And finally, on labor laws, I'll then also end with talking about some important patterns that are emerging in the economy, over the steps that have been taken in the last few years. So let me get on to the measures that have been taken to support consumption, to support NBFCs and the housing finance companies, which in turn, as I said, are critical for retail lending. Total sanctioned support has been of 4.47 lakh crores, which in fact includes 1.29 lakh crores of pooled buyouts as well of assets. The partial guarantee scheme, which was a very important facility for NBFCs for taking care of the of some of the stress that NBFCs and the HFCs were going through. The cabinet approval has been provided for those borrowers that had slided into SMA 0 category, and for asset pools that are rated BBB plus or better. And this is really important because the emphasis then is on those asset pools that are not able to actually find a market. Thereby, the intervention becomes quite effective. Within 2 days, 17 proposals amounting to more than 7,500 crores. In fact, 7,657 crores have been approved, and proposals amounting to about 20,000 crores are expected to be approved over the next 2 weeks. So there's substantial traction on this partial guarantee scheme for the NBFCs and HFCs, which in turn will also foster consumption, on the retail side. The government and the public sector units have cleared significant dues in 2 stages. Again, this is something that is important because that enables cash flow, movement of cash flow in the economy, and thereby enables consumption to get fostered. Up to 61,000 crores of dues were cleared previously. In the second round, of the 32 CPSCs, which is basically the Navratnas and the Maharatnas, more than 60% of these dues, and I emphasize more than 60% of these dues, have been cleared in the last 2 months. There is also an important mechanism that has been put in place to ensure that, going forward as well, the dues that the CPSCs owe are low, and therefore cash flow in the economy is actually transmitted smoothly. 21 out of the 32 Navratnas and Maharatnas have now set up an online bill tracking system to reduce the pendency in bill payment and reduce the accounts payable in the system of the CPSCs permanently. Now, what is due is actually less than 5,000 crore, to be precise, 4,877 crores. That's what is due. So this is another key measure that has been implemented upon to enable cash flow and thereby consumption in the economy. Following up on some of these measures, the RBI guidelines mandating banks to link their lending rates to external benchmarks. Following that directive, all public sector banks have introduced repo rate linked loan products. And in terms of the traction that we've had in this particular move, more than 8 lakh repo linked loans amounting to 72,201 crores, so more than 70,000 crores have been sanctioned as of 27th November 2019. So more than 8 lakh repo linked loans amounting to more than 70,000 crores till end of November. The MSME bill discounting, which is quite important, because as I had mentioned earlier, the MSMEs, for them cash flow is really critical, and when they're able to actually use their bills to discount and thereby tide over their cash flow problems, that's an important measure in enabling consumption, because MSMEs are critical to that. Over 5 lakh bills amounting to 12,698 crores, so over 12,500 crores. Over 5 lakh bills amounting to more than 12,500 crores have been, have been undertaken in this window till 15th November 2019. Also, a transparent one-time settlement policy in the public sector banks has, was announced, and on that, the implementation over 5.25 lakhs, so over 5.25 lakh, that's 5.26 lakh, of loans in numbers, and in the amount 16,716 crores. So over 16,500 crores has been sanctioned. So collectively, when you look at all these measures, these are, expected to boost consumption significantly, and thereby also actually, because anticipated consumption affects investment, and would have a positive effect on that as well. Now, let me come to the specific measures that have been taken to boost investment. This is something that, the liberalization of the FDI, many measures were announced in the budget, and subsequent to the budget as well, many measures were announced, and, the evidence of those measures fructifying is actually seen in the record FDI inflows. $35 billion in the first half of 2019-20, as against $31 billion in the during the same period last year. So $35 billion. So this is a very good sign of actually foreigners seeing India as a very, very important destination, and thereby actually putting their money where their mouth is. The corporate tax rate cut, 15% tax rate cuts, now makes us competitive, as competitive as any other country among our peers. Importantly, given the large market that we have and the large labor force that we also have, compared to these peers, the competitive tax rates also position us more favorably, because as you would realize, the foreign companies that come in usually have to incur some fixed costs in coming into a new country. When that can be spread over a large base, it gives them significant advantage. So that positions us very well for bringing in more, foreign investment as well. Capital expenditure by the government, as I had preambled, at the outset, capital expenditure by the government has the, the benefit of crowding in private investment, and of course that happens with a lag, but that is something which is very crucial. 66% of the budgeted capital expenditure of 3.38 lakh crores has already been undertaken. So, more than 2/3 of the budgeted expenditure of 3.38 lakh crores has already been undertaken. The Indian Railways and the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, they projected to undertake capex of about 2.5 lakh crores by the end of this month. Of course, they'll be also undertaking capex in the remaining 3 months as well. This is the number for as of 31st December 2019. The select CPSEs that I had referred to, 32 of the Maharatnas and the Navaratnas, have undertaken capital expenditures of close to 1 lakh crore, precisely 98,000 crores till November 2019, and are projected to undertake further capex of about 60,000 crores in the rest of the year. So together touching about 1.6 lakh crores. So that's the extent of capital expenditures by the government and the PSUs, which would help to boost investment. The realty fund, which is very important given the some of the difficulties that the real estate sector was facing. The fund of about 25,000 crores to be precise has been approved for last mile funding for the stalled housing projects. It is very important to keep in mind here that the actual impact of this fund will be many times this, because on average the construction cost is about 1/5 of the cost of a project. And if we suppose that on average these projects are half done, then at least 10 times the impact of this last mile funding will be in releasing projects. So about 2.5 lakh crore, just some back of the envelope calculations. Now, this fund, which is basically, has the name Swami, is fully operational, and the investment committee is completing the due diligence on the first set of deals today as we talk. The necessary changes that were required to enable this have been done in the bankruptcy code. Now, what is very important, I must emphasize, actually, I brought this to your attention when I spoke about reforms, is that this has been done through careful due diligence, which requires, as you would appreciate, coordination across several different arms of the government, but that has been done in record time. 6 to 8 weeks as against usually what would take 6 to 8 months, and that is something that is quite heartening. The fund has found excellent traction from 13 domestic financial institutions, including HDFC, SBI and LIC. The legal documentation for more than 10,500 crores has already been executed, which is again evidence of actually traction on the scheme. What is important is that this process of due diligence has incorporated some of the lessons that we've gathered from previous episodes of fiscal expansion, so that the investment that is intended here is targeted and transparent, so that it generates the intended bang for the buck. The credit expansion via the public sector banks, budget announced 70,000 crores of equity, 60,000 crores to be precise, 60,314 crores has been infused already, and 4.9 lakh crores has been disbursed. Of that, 2.2 lakh crores to corporates, about 73,000 crores to MSMEs, and 39,453 crores to retail borrowers. This is basically in the window that was done in October. To enable, and protect honest decision making among the public sector banks, an internal advisory committee has been set up, which is basically to classify cases as vigilance or no vigilance. And what is critical is that this internal advisory committee, together with the chief vigilance officer, would basically make the final decision in classifying cases into those that basically may require a vigilance look or no vigilance. And an advisory board has also been set up for looking into bank frauds. So together these will enable actually better decision making, while at the same time ensuring that instances of frauds etc. are actually clamped down. Importantly, if we have to have more investment, financing is really critical, and for which capital markets are really important. Sorry. So the law that was passed by Parliament for setting up a unified regulator for international financial services, I think, is a very, very important move that we need to take cognizance of, because this will enable capital flows by reducing regulatory and compliance burden, because now these regulatory and compliance activities can basically be done in a one-stop shop, and thereby would bring back trading of Indian financial products from offshore centers onto onshores. The regulatory burden for equity and equity-like instruments like preferred shares, etc., have been eased through comprehensive rules for non-debt instruments under FEMA, and this will also enable to streamline foreign investment. This is an important move, the one unified market across the country for financial instruments through the rationalization of stamp duty. It was a key recommendation in the HR Khan committee to foster development of the corporate bond market. So this one unified market by rationalizing stamp duties is a significant move in expanding the presence of corporate bond markets. A revised ECB framework has been prescribed to rationalize the scheme for accessing foreign debt for Indian companies. And crucially, this includes working capital loans and rupee-denominated loans by Indian corporates, which will enable capital raising by the Indian corporates for funding investment. Some more measures on capital markets. A framework for debt ETF has been notified by the SEBI, and the Bharat Bond ETF that has made news utilizes this framework. A framework to allow shares for differential voting rights, which is a very important move for startups, because startups need to avail funding without basically losing control over the company. So the allowing of differential voting rights, shares with differential voting rights, really enables funding for startups, and thereby is an important move for the new economy. Interoperability among the clearing corporations has been implemented, thereby will enable efficient use of capital for clients that trade on multiple stock exchanges. Plain vanilla options in commodities have been enabled, and this will enable hedging of the risks, especially on agricultural commodities. And norms for that are applicable to credit rating agencies have been tightened. As you would appreciate, credit rating agencies are a critical cog in the corporate loan market, and this will really enable further development of the credit markets, because investors look up to the credit rating agencies for information on the credit risk of the borrower. In terms of enabling foreign portfolio investment, the KYC norms have been simplified. In consultation with the ministry, SEBI has approved several changes in the norms as of 5th November 2019, and this includes simplified documentation and exemptions for regulated entities. The statutory limit for FPI investment in a company has been increased from 24% to the sectoral foreign investment limit, and this will be effective from the 1st of April 2020. On 4th October 2019, RBI announced its decision to permit USD INR trading at the Gst IFSC, and this is very important because it will enable actually foreign exchange markets to develop further, because domestic banks can now freely offer foreign exchange prices to non-residents at all times, and will also bring in offshore rupee market to the domestic stock exchanges, and thereby permit trading of USD INR derivatives in the Gst IFSC. It will enable actually foreign exchange markets to develop further, because domestic banks can now freely offer foreign exchange prices to non-residents at all times, and will also bring in offshore rupee market to the domestic stock exchanges, and thereby permit trading of USD INR derivatives in the Gst IFSC. Some important reforms, as I said, on disinvestment. The emphasis has changed on disinvestment to enhance economic efficiency, and therefore disinvestment in non-priority areas where competitive markets have already taken root, have come of age. Those basic have been undertaken. These include BPCL, Concor, and Shipping Corporation of India. Will enable private buyers to bring capital, importantly technology, and also better management, thereby enhancing productivity in firms, which will basically accumulate into growth at the economy level. The bandwidth for disinvestment has been, especially through minority stake sale, has been widened by bringing down the government's equity to below 51%. It's an important move because it actually releases significant bandwidth, and that's been done on a case-to-case basis, which will increase wider, which will lead to wider public ownership of the shares of the selected CPSEs. The Bharat Bond ETF, which you would have read about last week, has also enabled participation and wider pool of financing for the CPSEs. Some measures on the ease of doing business, as you would have noticed and recalled. India jumped to 63rd in the World Bank's EODB rankings, and the bankruptcy code was a primary contributor to this. There have been important changes that have been brought in the in the bankruptcy code as well, ring fencing successful bidders of stressed assets from the risk of criminal proceedings, when offences have been committed by previous management and promoters. It's an important aspect in order to enable the functioning of the IBC. And importantly, the threshold for financial creditors has been imposed to ensure that there is no frivolous triggering of insolvency for very small amounts. Thereby, the spirit of the bankruptcy code is actually indeed respected through these changes. There is no need now for a debenture resumption reserve for debentures that are issued by listed companies, by banks, NBFCs, and housing finance companies. This will reduce the cost of issuance and thereby help in fostering the development of the corporate bond markets. Crucially, CSR violations have been decriminalized and are to be treated as a civil offense. NBFCs have been permitted to use the Aadhaar authenticated bank KYC. So all these together are important steps in easing doing business in India for corporates, and thereby should also have impact on investment by corporates. Crucial part, which actually investors have been clamoring for and have been mentioning, is the reform in labor laws. The about 40-odd labor laws that existed at the central level have been now codified into 4 codes: the Code on Wages, Code on Occupational Safety, the Industrial Relations Code, and the Social Security Code. The Code on Wages, as you would know, actually has been notified in August 2019. The Code on Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions was introduced in Parliament in July 2019. This brings together 13 central labor laws within this new code. The Industrial Relations Code has been introduced in Parliament on 28th November. It amalgamates and rationalizes 3 central labor acts to impart flexibility to the exit provisions, especially by enabling fixed-term employment contracts and also enabling thresholds to be notified, thereby providing flexibility for attracting investment. The Social Security Code Bill was introduced in Parliament on 11 December, and this will enable universal security for workers. To enable the take-home that employees get to take to their home, the contribution of ESIC has been reduced from 6.5% to 4%. This will thereby put more money in the hands of employees, and thereby should also help in fostering consumption. In terms of compliance to labor laws, the web-based jurisdiction-free inspections have been enabled with report to be uploaded within 48 hours. Thereby, the compliance requirement will actually be simplified significantly in the employer-employment relationship. Now, let me just conclude by highlighting some important trends that are emerging in the economy, which we should certainly take note of. So this is some analysis that we've done on the status of employment, comparing it in 17-18 versus 2011-12. As you would recall, there have been several measures that have been taken over the last 5 years to formalize the economy. What you notice here, and this is the most important aspect to take note of, is that if you look at the distribution of employees between casual workers, regular salaried workers, and self-employed workers, what you would notice is that the percentage of casual workers has gone down by 5%, and the regular salaried workers has gone up by an equivalent 5%. So in 2011-12, the percentage of casual workers was 30%, which has come down now, and regular salaried has gone up by 5%. This translates into about 2.3 crore jobs moving from casual workers to regular salaried. Within the self-employed as well, and that's some important variation that one must actually focus on, which is that within self-employed, the self-employed could be an employer, could be an own account worker, which is somebody, a mom and pop store, for instance, or unpaid family labor, which is actually the kid or, let's say, the wife working without getting paid. Within this, the important change that has happened is that unpaid family labor has gone down and own account worker has increased. And if these changes, especially on the movement from casual workers to regular salaried, is seen a lot more in the rural areas, with casual workers basically moving to salaried. In the urban areas, the move is from self-employed to salaried. So this is an important, transformation that is happening in the economy, formalization of the workforce. If you look at it from a different angle, the proportion of workers in agriculture has gone down by 5%, and this has been absorbed by a 4% increase in services and a 1% increase in industry. And this change is particularly highlighted in the rural areas where people have moved from agriculture to services. Finally, if you look at the organized versus unorganized distribution, organized workforce in the organized sector has increased by 2% with a concomitant decrease in the unorganized sector by 2%. Within the organized sector itself, if you focus on the split between informal versus formal, there's a decrease in the informal sector and an increase in the formal sector. So when you look at it collectively, all these different angles that I've provided, this clearly suggests that there is actually a change in the nature of work. And that's one other way of looking at it is by splitting this into remunerative versus less remunerative jobs. And the proportion, I want you to take a note here, is that in the rural areas, proportion of remunerative jobs have increased by 3.3%. So the less remunerative ones have actually decreased concomitantly. In urban areas, the increase has been about 1.4%. In aggregate, there is actually an increase about 3.2% in the remunerative jobs and a concomitant decrease in the less remunerative, which is consistent with what we saw with salaried workers increasing, with agriculture going down, the proportion of services and manufacturing increasing, and organized actually increasing within organized itself, formal versus informal. So to sort of conclude, there are important steps that have been taken, and which is also reflected in the changing nature of the economy over the last 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We will try to provide you a copy of the presentation later on. May I now request the Revenue Secretary for the brief presentation? Yes, ma'am. We'll do that, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My colleague, Chief Economic Advisor, has already given you the overall perspective. He has also spoken about how much money is being put in the economy to help and improve. So one of the important aspects was refund of taxes. So here we have given a comparative picture. So basically in the indirect tax, we have IGST refund. The IGST refund, let me explain to you that particularly the exporters who exports and then whatever GST has been paid on those products which are being exported, they get refund of IGST, GST through IGST refund. So in 2018-19, we had given a refund in 16.3 lakhs. Total amount was 56,000 crores. In 1920 till now, we have given refund of 9.64 and almost about 39,000 crores. ITC refund, there are many cases where the refund has to be granted, mostly because of inverted duty structure. So there, the last year, the total refund was 36,000 crores. Now this year, because we have expedited refund, because we are trying to ensure that the people get refunds in time. This year, till November, we have already given refunds to the tune of 33,000 crores. So last year, total refund in one year 36,000 crores. This year till November, 33,000 crores. Now, so far the income tax, the direct tax is concerned, the last year total number of refunds that we issued was 1.84 crores and total amount was 1.23 lakhs crore. Now in this year, till November, rather till 11th of December, we have already issued refund of 2.16 crores and amounting to 1.57 lakh crores. So if you can see increase over 2018-19, in terms of numbers, 17% increase, and in terms of percentage, in case of a direct tax, 27.2% increase. So if you sum total, both direct tax and indirect tax, total refunds that have been issued in this year is amounting to almost 2.2 lakh crores, 2,20,000 crores. Now, what we have done is that in case of a refund, we have in GST, we have made this entire refund process completely automated. Earlier, people used to go and apply before the GST authorities, and then those refunds used to be processed manually. From 26th of September, it's a completely online process. The people are able to file the online processing, sanctions and disbursement, everything. Earlier, every GST refunds constitute the state GST and then the CGST, and then the state used to give sanctions separately, central government used to sanction separately, and they used to be disbursed also separately. So what we have done is that now it is a single source disbursement. The refund applications are given online, they are sanctioned, disbursed also online, and then a single authority disburses the refund, and then the states and center, they split the whole refund amount. They adjust the refund amount later. Now, in GST, we have taken some recent, the important initiative. So we have introduced e-invoice. From 1st of January, all taxpayers, all companies having more than 500 crores, they will have an option to generate electronic invoice from 1st of January 2020. Why we are doing it? Because from 1st of April 2020, we are going to make electronic invoice mandatory for the companies having turnover more than 100 crores. So what we want is that the people should get used to the whole new electronic invoice system, so that they don't face any difficulty when it is actually introduced from 1st of April 2020. And so what we have proposed is that the companies above 100 crore turnovers, it will be mandatory for them to issue electronic invoice, and then we can bring down this turnover limit so that others also can take advantage of this. Now, once e-invoice is generated, then their returns can also be self-generated, because as you know that in GST, one has to give the details of his sales and purchase. So all sales invoices, sales figures will be collected from the electronic invoice itself. So at the end of the month, the returns will be generated from all the e-invoice that has been generated by the taxpayers. So that will be automatically populated. And also in future, we have plans that once the e-invoice has been generated, it will not require a separate generation of e-way bill. So that will be also another step towards the simplification. Now, further, there were certain suggestions on the annual returns and the reconciliation statement for the financial year 2017-18 and 18-19. So what we have done, that we have made this annual returns and reconciliation statement optional for the taxpayers having less than 2 crore turnover. And also for these 2 years, many of the fields where the taxpayers were facing difficulties, we have made them optional. And also we organized a stakeholder feedback divas all over the country on 7th of December. So we did this in 193 cities, where 19,645 stakeholders participated, in the sense that they came with their live data, and then they actually tried to fill in their returns, and then we tried to understand what difficulties they had, and then what improvement could be made, what further simplification is required. So that was very, very valuable. Now, so far as the compliance simplification is concerned, we have also recently introduced a document identification number. From 8th of November 2019, so far as the indirect tax is concerned, the GST, customs, we have said that any document that is issued, or any letter or any summons or any notice that is issued by any of these indirect tax department like customs or GST or the DRI, every document will contain DIN number, and unless until that DIN number is there, that document, that notice, that summons, that so-called notice, that will be legally invalid, and the taxpayer he can go to the portal, enter the DIN number, and try and find out that whether that particular notice is indeed true. It is just not. It has just not been issued to threaten somebody and try to scare away the people. Also, for the refund drive, as I was mentioning, that a special refund drive for the MSME was taken in the month of September 2019, and since then, so I have given the figures here that prior to this refund drive for the MSME, 74,000 cases were pending, and the total amount involved was 10,841 crores. And till date, we have sanctioned 9,561 crore, and in total 66,150 cases, and then the remaining cases could be held up because of compliance of some documents, which will also get cleared soon. Now, we have also, in this budget, we announced that Sabka Biswas, this legacy dispute resolution, because we want to bring down the pendency of the disputes. So, this offer has already been made, where the cases which are pending in adjudication of appeal, the relief of 70% of duty demand, and if the amount is more than 50 lakhs, or if the amount is, if the amount is less than 50 lakhs, then the relief of 70% duty can be given. And if the amount is more than 50 lakhs, then the relief of 50% duty can be taken. Similarly, wherever the demand is confirmed and no appeal is pending, there the relief of 60% of the confirmed duty if the amount is 50 lakhs or less, and relief of 40% of confirmed duty if the amount is more than 50 lakhs. And in case of a voluntary disclosure, the assessee has to, of course, pay the full disclosed amount. So total, we have already received the application for the settlement, this 52,000 crores, which involves 27,911 crore rupees. Now, so far as the direct tax is concerned, the major initiatives have been taken. As we are all aware, that the corporate tax rate, our Chief Economic Advisor also mentioned that we have now brought down the tax rate to 22% and effective tax rate 25.17, and provided no tax exemption, no MAT are claimed. For the new manufacturing companies, the new domestic manufacturing company, they will have to pay only 15% tax rate. Effective tax rate is 17.16%, again provided it does not claim any exemption, deduction, and no MAT for these companies. We also reduced this rate for MAT. That earlier it was 18.5%, brought down to 15%. This buyback provisions also was grandfathered. Enhanced surcharge, which was introduced in this budget, that also has been partially withdrawn, particularly, and fully withdrawn for the FPIs. The auto sector, you may recall that in the month of August, September, to help the auto sector, the enhanced depreciation was given, where the rates of appreciation was increased by 15%. The existing rate was 15%, which we increased to 30%, and particularly for the hired vehicle, it was 30%, we increased it to 45%. Then, for the ease of compliance, this faceless and randomized assessment was introduced from Vijayadashmi Day in this year, and meaning thereby that a taxpayer in Mumbai, if his case is selected for scrutiny, his case could be assessed by any tax officer in some other country, some other state or the city like Lucknow, and the entire the proceeding will be conducted completely from 1st of October 2019, and again I would repeat that any document or any notice or...
तो वित्त मंत्रालय की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस आप इस वक्त देख पा रहे हैं। तमाम बड़े अधिकारी वहां पर वित्त मंत्रालय के मौजूद हैं, खुद वित्त मंत्री वहां पर मौजूद हैं, वित्त राज्य मंत्री वहां पर मौजूद हैं। कुछ बड़ी बातें यहां पर कही गई हैं कि इकोनॉमी को मजबूती देने के लिए, इकोनॉमी को बूस्ट देने के लिए क्या कुछ कदम उठाए गए हैं, इन तमाम बातों पर चर्चा हो रही है।
Certain difficulties. So what we have done is that we have issued we have simplified the procedures, and also we have constituted a dedicated startup cell, which is headed by a member of the CBDT. And since then, the amount of complaints that we used to get, particularly from the startups, have actually reduced, because during the last last 2-3 months, we have not received any major grievance from any startups. Also, reduction in litigation. The appeals which were pending in ITAT or the High Court or the Supreme Court, we have enhanced the monetary limits, and because of that, 13,000 appeals have been withdrawn by the department from the various courts. In this year, we also introduced the pre-filling of the income tax returns. You must have noticed that in this year, in the month of July and August, when the returns were filed, particularly about the salaried class who filed this ITR1, the most of the information was pre-filled, like your salary information, deduction informations, and then the bank interest information. Many of those informations were pre-filled. More than 2 crore salary taxpayers took advantage of this. Now, about the speedy issuance of refunds, I have already mentioned that in this year, the total amount of refund has increased by 27.2%. Last year, we issued a refund of 1.23 lakh crore in the entire year. This year, we have already issued refund of 1.57 lakh crores. Also, we have given relaxation in the norms of prosecution, particularly about the TDS. We used to receive a complaint that for a small violations, the taxpayers used to be prosecuted. So what we have said, that if the amount is less than 25 lakhs, particularly in TDS deduction, then in such cases, the prosecution decision will be taken by a collegium of officers, and particularly of the Chief Commissioner's income tax rank, and then only the prosecution could be filed, and they would see that whether it is a case of willful evasion of tax or failure to file returns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Friends, there are number on your seats. One by one, we will call the number and we will take the question. Number 17.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Shishir here from Hindu Business Line. There are a number of figures given, but one number, last evening you talked about that compensation, GST compensation dues will be paid to the states. Can I ask you, ma'am, what is the total due as of now, and what is the situation of compensation fund?
Well, the figures I've given yesterday in the House, so I didn't come ready with the exact figures that you want, but you may want to refer to the answer that I've given in the Rajya Sabha.
Number 7.
Ma'am, given the current situation of the economy, there is a lot of news reports happening that the revenue targets might not be met, whether it be the indirect taxes or the direct taxes. What is the current situation on both the direct and indirect tax collections? And as you have been repeatedly saying, at the RE stage, you might be at a more comfortable position to talk about the fiscal deficit. I'm sure the budget exercise has started. If you could give some outlook on how government would like to maintain the fiscal stand.
Yeah, you're right in saying it has started. It's not ended for me to give you a picture yet.
But on the exact number, ma'am, where we are on direct and indirect.
Is there something you want to say, Secretary?
What is the current status of both?
Please let the answer come from this side and then give your questions.
We are undertaking this revised estimate exercise. So I think the things will be clear in the next, I would say, next few weeks. So we are still collecting the data because up till 30th of November, we have already given the data about the income tax, the direct tax, corporation tax, and the income tax, and also about the GST. So those figures are already out in public. Now, on 15th of December, is the date where the advance tax for the third quarter will come. And this, on this day, we'll get a fairly good estimate that what is going to be the impact of corporate tax reduction. Because the corporate tax reduction was announced on 20th of September, and after that, the 15th is the last, 15th is the date where the people will actually, each company will assess that how much tax it has to pay and in this current year after adjusting all the tax that it has already paid in the first 2 quarters. So that is the kind of an exercise we will have to undertake, and then only we'll come to a realistic figure as to what will be the revenue collection in the income tax in this year.
Mr. Pandey, there is only people a shortfall because people have paid extra. Bringing down the way people will go collection only.
1 minute. 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 1 Question number, plate number 23.
Hi, I'm Shubham Batra from Cogensis. My question is, by which quarter do you see the pickup in economic activity as an impact of the implementation of the central government capex, the CPSC capex, and also the loan disbursals that have happened to the NBFCs? Because there are still some agencies that are projecting that the fourth quarter could see a further dip in the GDP growth to 4.3%. And to the Revenue Secretary, so right now, will there be any provisional estimates on the third installment on of advanced tax collections?
You know, I have already clarified that the income direct tax collection is already out by, you know, the 30th of November figure. You already know that. Same thing is about the GST also. That is the indirect tax. Now, what the trend, what exactly we will get in this quarter, that will be known only on 15th or 16th of December this year, this month. And that is going to tell us that what exactly we will get again in the next quarter, that is on March 15th. So I think we will have to wait for some time to get to some realistic estimate and get to know more than what we already know. That what we know is that the figures which are there till 30th of November, that direct tax and indirect tax.
Number one. Just please wait. Next.
On the by which quarter do you see the pickup in the economic activity?
All right, you may ask me to tell you about which quarter. I'm not at the moment engaging in any of this.
Later. Yeah.
I'm not engaging with any of these prediction-based questions. I'm looking at the economy where I need to intervene. I'm intervening, and I shall continue to do, addressing the problem of the industry as and when it rises. So I'm not yet in that stage to say any prediction.
Number one, please.
Ma'am, taking off from what you have just said, that the government will intervene as and how required. There is a lot of commentary now also coming in from various quarters, particularly after the latest IIP numbers. Third consecutive month that the numbers are still in the negative territory. Though the pace of deceleration has come down, and also your inflation numbers have gone up. Keeping all of this in mind, the new commentary that is coming in is now that probably the Indian economy is entering a stage of stagflation, quote unquote. Ma'am, any comments on that? Any observations?
No comments on that. I've heard it. Stagflation is a narrative which is going on. I'm hearing it.
24.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Arup from Business Standard. After the RBI's latest projections, when they have slashed India's growth forecast from 6.1 to 5%, has the government tempered its own internal estimates? Because I'm still going by the last number that the CEA, Dr. Subramanian, had spoken of, that is 6 to 6.5. So have you, tempered your own numbers internally? And that second half, that uptick in second half growth that was expected, is that still an expectation now?
Second half is not over yet. Yeah.
35.
Ma'am, this is Aishwarya Paliwal from India Today. Ma'am, this.
35.
Yeah. Ma'am, now Rahul Gandhi has been going on record and saying that whatever the government is doing is trying to divert the attention from the economy. And he's saying that the economy is in the doldrums. So do you have a counter for that?
Actually, if I want to divert the attention, I should be playing up on a horrendous statement that Sri Rahul Gandhi has made on behalf of all the women of this country.
Number 18.
1 minute. I'm not finished.
Okay.
You saw in the Rajya Sabha today that many women MPs came almost wanting to enter into the well on the horrendous statement, and I repeat that word, horrendous statement made by Sri Rahul Gandhi. We may belong to the opposition party, but when we are talking about the country, I assume that all of us will be one. We are talking about women and women's dignity. I could have definitely gone hammer and tongs on that matter. Now that you've asked me, I'm taking this opportunity. It's a matter of shame that a senior leader of Congress party speaks forgetting about the dignity of women, and because it also brings in a very important initiative of this government, Make in India, into the picture, and uses all elements of sarcasm to talk about how it is not Make in India, but you know what he said. I don't need to put an effort to distract. This is good enough for me, but I did not till you asked me.
106.
मैडम हिमांशु शेखर आपके सामने ही हूं मैं। एक महत्वपूर्ण रिपोर्ट सीएनएजी की पार्लियामेंट में पेश की गई है जिसमें ये कहा गया है कि जो प्रधानमंत्री उज्ज्वला योजना है उसकी ऑडिट परफॉर्मेंस ऑडिट में ये पाया गया है कि बहुत सारे गवर्नमेंट फंड्स जो हैं देयर इज अ रिस्क ऑफ डाइवर्शन ऑफ डोमेस्टिक सिलेंडर्स फॉर कमर्शियल यूज। कैसे देखते हैं आप इसको? प्लग करने के लिए आपको लगता है सरकार को पहल करनी चाहिए?
जहां तक मेरा याद है, इस विषय के ऊपर पार्लियामेंट में शायद एक जवाब कंसर्न डिपार्टमेंट में दिया है, if I'm right. If not, the whole attempt of the government is to ensure that the direct benefit transfers happen so that there are no pilferages. I'm glad that the CAG is also talking about that there may be a risk, if you use the word. They've not said it has happened already. They've only said there may be a risk, right? So the attempt of this government is to make sure that by using DBT, we'll get over the problem, if any. At the moment, even the report, as I understand, as you're saying, has not said that there is something wrong. They only said maybe. The government is already taking steps for DBT.
18, please.
कल रक्षित हूं एबीपी न्यूज से। कल आईआईपी नंबर आया है, 3 महीने से लगातार डीग्रोथ हो रही है। बात सीपीआई की होती है तो लगातार 4 महीने से महंगाई बढ़ रही है। ऐसे में आपकी तरफ से एक क्लियर स्टेटमेंट क्या होगा कि भारतीय अर्थव्यवस्था इस समय पे कहां खड़ी हुई है? आप उसको बुरे दौर में मानती हैं, बहुत बुरे दौर में मानती हैं, या आपका क्या मानना है कि भारतीय अर्थव्यवस्था फिलहाल आप कहां पर देखती हैं?
जवाब दे चुकी हूं मैं। अर्थव्यवस्था कहाँ है वगैरह में एंगेज नहीं कर रही हूँ। मैं सीधा काम कर रही हूँ, जहाँ हमारे आवश्यकता है वहाँ कुछ करने के लिए।
Ma'am, I just come back to the issue of the fiscal deficit, because how far will you be able to keep that budgeted target? That is the, everybody is worried about that. Or is there going to be a revision in that because of the fact that there has been, the growth projections haven't gone as expected?
You don't get bored asking the same question. I don't get bored replying the same way. Wait till the RE.
58.
Ma'am, Agnish, this side from Mint. Ma'am, there has been buzz in the recent weeks about the possibility of the GST Council considering a possible increase in GST rate or the GST cess to improve revenue collections. But yesterday's data, IAP data, shows that consumer goods output has contracted by 18%. So it appears that it might be a bad time to consider an increase in GST rate. Given the slump in consumption. I would like to know your thoughts.
If you don't mind, do you want to start that question all over again? Just the starting bit.
Been buzz in recent weeks that there has been buzz in recent weeks that the GST Council may consider an increase in GST rates or the GST cess in order to.
The buzz is everywhere else other than in my office. The bus is everywhere else other than in my office. Does that help? I don't know where this is coming from. I have not been to the GST Council yet. So whether it's going to request them for a hike or to ask them to review, Nothing have I spoken among ourselves. We have not had any conversation on it yet. But it's good to see all these churning outside. It helps to clarify our thought processes.
So it's out of the table, I can presume, ma'am.
No, I'm not even saying that. I'm saying we as a team have not spoken yet on what we want to go to the GST Council with. So it's good that so much of thought is having its own churn outside. Helps me to understand how the mindsets work. We have not taken a call. The buzz is everywhere else.
Number 2.
Sorry? That's fine, but I'm attributing to my team.
Ma'am, I have a question on GST. Yesterday in the Parliament also you said that the compensation cess has not been paid to the states after August. Many states have also met you. Some of them are even saying that they will consider legal options because getting the compensation cess is their right. What is it that the centre is going to do? And of course the GST Council is going to do in the upcoming days. The meeting is on the 18th. What are the options that are on the table? If you could just help us understand that.
Again, I did give an elaborate answer on this yesterday in the Rajya Sabha. No one is denying that it is their right. I fully acknowledge it is their right. And I've also given the figures out as to what was the collection, how much was paid in 2017-18, and again what was the collection and what was paid 18-19. And I've also said up to October 31st, what was the collection and then what was paid. And I'm also saying that it is an article of faith, cooperative federalism, and we shall keep up what has been committed in terms of giving refunds, in terms of giving the compensation.
68.
That says everything.
68, please. 68. 58.
Madam,
it is also over.
Bankers are nowadays openly saying that very few, comparatively to last financial year, very few corporates are approaching for loan, and those who are approaching due to the government's policy on NPA and RBI norms, they are unable to release loans. So we cannot survive on retail banking. Number 2, do you have any plan that if there are in this third quarter, if the non-performing banks, do you have any plan to recapitalization or any further mergers?
On the banks extending loans, we have already very clearly shown the figures which came out of the exercise in October and late October and early October. The figures show that when the banks went to the districts, there were people who approached them, and that is why we could achieve that kind of a number within a month. And not just directly from the banks, but also through the NBFCs. But if there are people who feel there is a difficulty that they are not getting the credit that they want from the banks, they're welcome to approach us. The objective of the government is to make sure where term loans or working capital are issues, they shouldn't remain as issues any longer, and they should get the credit facility. But specifically if there is an issue of NPA, yes, the number of NPAs was a very big issue earlier, but we've brought it all down for the bank. And today there is a lot of, engagement with the customers of the public sector banks, and banks are sitting and talking with them to see how best their stress situation can be restructured. So I don't see that being an unaddressed issue. It may still need time for resolution, but it is being addressed.
30.
Is the 4,877 crore mentioned in the presentation the dues only of the CPSEs or the dues owed by both the government and the CPSEs?
This due pertains to a level of CPSE dues. Earlier, this level was about 13,000 crores. A campaign which was taken earlier which cleared up a big chunk of 60,000 crore, and it was found that among CPSEs a level of 13,000 crore as a permanent level remained because bills keep coming on regular basis. So they introduced a portal-based system of clearing to push down that level even lower so that the cash cycles for the business, largely these are MSMEs, smaller vendors and so on and so forth. So that level has now come down to 4,887 crores. Now even the effort is to push that envelope even further, that level even comes down below and doesn't go beyond with portal-based payment, continuous monitoring and these
So what is the government dues? What are the government dues as of?
Government dues are at much lower level. In fact,
Even lower than
with the clearance of 60,000 crores, they're all between the due period.
So around 4,000 crores or less than that?
No, this specific sum pertains to 32 CPSCs.
Right.
All government dues are within the due period.
Sorry, within the?
Within the due period. Within the period they are to.
37.
Thank you, sir.
हेलो, हाँ मैम, इंडस्ट्री को राहत देने के लिए कारपोरेट टैक्स में बड़ी कटौती की गई थी। उम्मीद थी कि प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ेगा, तो उसका क्या असर अभी तक दिखा है? क्योंकि फॉर्मर आरबीआई गवर्नर रघुराम राजन ने कहा है कि इसके बजाय अगर इनकम टैक्स के मोर्चे पर राहत दी गई होती तो कंजम्पशन जरूर बढ़ता। तो क्या प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ा है इस वक्त?
कहा है बताएंगे जरा?
रघुराम राजन कि अगर कारपोरेट टैक्स कटौती की जगह पर अगर पर्सनल इनकम टैक्स में कटौती की गई होती तो कंजम्पशन ज्यादा बढ़ता।
20.
Ma'am, I have a question on GST as well. Last night in your response in Rajya Sabha, you said dues, the compensation released to the state governments as of October has been in excess of about 9,800 crore rupees, which has been collected in the compensation cess fund. So you've released more than what you've collected so far. So as of October 2019. So does that mean that you'll rework your entire compensation strategy, that you have to give compensation to states in every 2 months, since your collections have been lower than what you've been actually compensating states? And since as per the constitution, as on today, you can only compensate states using the compensation cess proceeds. So will that mean you'll increase the compensation cess on products? And will it mean that you would also rework the entire strategy for compensating states?
At this stage, I've explained where we are, which is what I did in the Rajya Sabha. I've also explained that there need not be a confusion, because that was specifically asked by a member, that there need not be a confusion about if only some states have been denied the compensation and some others have been given. No, nobody has been given. That has also been explained. And I also assured that it's the duty, and we recognize the duty that we have to give it. Nobody is denying the compensation to anybody, any state. So at this stage, we are only there. Your several questions all indicating, am I doing a review? Will I reorganize my cess collection? Will I go for a ramped up cess for gaining that money? I have nothing to say at this stage.
11.
Ma'am, you had announced 100 lakh crore investment plans in the infrastructure sector, and there were going to be announcements. What is the status of that?
There are in all 28 different sectors, ministries and departments from whom the projects would flow in the form of the project information, project preparations. So the projects all put together would form a basic project platform that is consisting of data about those projects, what status they are, what is the sequence of their being implemented, and thereafter how they would be financed, and sectoral reform wherever they are required. That is a structure of a national infrastructure pipeline that would come in place. Most of the data largely is in place, that is getting verified, because that also forms the basis for most of the investors who come in and base their funding upon. And this is in very, very, very advanced stage of preparation now and finalization.
38. Just another question is coming, please just wait.
मैम आमिर न्यूज़ नेशन से। मैम कुछ 5-6 कमोडिटीज़ पर नज़र रखने के लिए जब महंगाई शुरू हो रही थी, या महंगाई जब आई थी, तो ये कहा गया था कि एक स्टेबलाइजेशन फंड जो है वो क्रिएट किया जाएगा ताकि उस महंगाई को रोका जा सके। अभी प्याज की कीमतें 100 रुपये के ऊपर ही चल रही हैं, इंपोर्ट किया जा रहा है बाहर से। कब तक इस सिचुएशन को हैंडल कर पाया जाएगा और कब तक ये डाउन हो पाएगी, कुछ एस्टिमेट है?
जहां तक खबर आ रही है मीडिया के द्वारा ही, कई जगह पर प्याज के दाम कम भी होने लगे हैं। कम जितना कम होना है उतना नहीं, मगर जहां तक पहुंचा उधर से कम हो रहा। We've had a group of ministers meeting which is reviewing on almost every 1 or 2 days gap basis and deciding on how to further take up the import related issues. जैसे आप कह रहे हैं सही, that yes, import हो रही है. By the time I also think gradually the crop started coming in. इसमें हम एक विषय भूलना नहीं चाहिए कि जल्दी पेरिशेबल कमोडिटी जैसे अनियन और जिसमें मॉइस्चर कंटेंट ज़्यादा रहने में और जल्दी भी वो सड़ जाता है, इस बार because of the rain and excessive in some places and flooding in some other places, crop extent ही कम हुआ, therefore output भी कम हुआ. उसके कारण it has gone out of a certain reasonable level. So सरकार के द्वारा हर कदम उठाया जा रहे हैं कि इंपोर्ट करें, मार्केट को जल्द से जल्द उसको पहुंचाएं.
तो वित्त मंत्री को आप सुन रहे थे, कुछ बड़ी बातें यहाँ पर कही गई हैं कि किस तरह से इकोनॉमी को बूस्ट करने के लिए कुछ बड़े और कड़े फैसले सरकार ने लिए हैं और उसका असर अभी आने वाले समय में दिखेगा. जीडीपी के ऊपर जब उनसे सवाल किया गया तो उन्होंने कहा कि उसके ऊपर काम चल रहा है, लेकिन कोई अनुमान देना, कोई प्रिडिक्शन देना अभी ये ठीक नहीं होगा. लेकिन आर्थिक हालात देश के बेहतर बनाने के लिए काम किए जा रहे हैं, ये भरोसा वित्त मंत्री ने दिया है. प्याज की कीमतों पर उन्होंने कहा कि प्याज कीमतों को कम करने के लिए कई फैसले लिए गए हैं. हाल ही में जीओएम की मीटिंग हुई है और अब प्याज के दाम धीरे धीरे कम होने शुरू हो गए हैं.